I wiped my wet hands on my apron. The rich aroma of braised short ribs, my husband's favorite, filled the pristine, modern kitchen. Today was our 5th wedding anniversary. I had prepared a special dinner. The dining table was set with a crisp, white linen tablecloth, our best porcelain plates, and a small candle in the center. I wanted this evening to be perfect for the two of us. However, something was off with Jenna, our housekeeper. She had been unusually quiet since the morning. Her face was pale, and her eyes were puffy, as if she'd been crying hard. Jenna had worked for us for 2 years. She was still young, only 22. She was a good worker, diligent, and never caused any trouble. I had even come to see her as a younger sister, often giving her clothes I no longer wore but were still in perfect condition, or extra food to send back to her family in her small town. "Jenna, are you feeling okay?" I asked, noticing her staring blankly at the sink. The faucet was running, wasting water on an already clean plate. Jenna jumped, startled. She quickly turned off the water and bowed her head. "I'm fine, ma'am," she answered, her voice trembling. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "If you're sick, just go rest in your room. I can wash the dishes later. David will be home soon. Have you prepared his drink?" I asked again, trying to be gentle. I knew Jenna came from a simple background. Maybe she was homesick or had some personal problems. "It's done, ma'am. I'll be in the back," she said quickly, practically running out of the kitchen, leaving me alone. I let out a long sigh. She probably was dealing with something. I didn't want to pry into her private life, unless she chose to confide in me. I took off my apron and walked to the mirror in the living room, smoothing my freshly washed hair. I was wearing a maroon silk gown my husband had bought me on our honeymoon in Hawaii. I wanted to look beautiful for him tonight. The wall clock showed 7 p.m. The sound of a car engine echoed from the garage. That had to be him. My heart beat a little faster. 5 years of marriage, and I still felt a thrill of excitement welcoming my husband home from work. I walked to the front door and opened it just as my husband, David, stepped onto the porch. He looked exhausted. His suit jacket was slung over his arm, and his tie was already loosened. His usually calm face was tense and rigid. "Welcome home, darling," I greeted him with a warm smile. I took his hand and kissed the back of it, a ritual I never missed. David just grunted softly. "Yeah." He pulled his hand away quickly, as if my touch repulsed him. I was a little taken aback, but tried to push away the bad thoughts creeping in. Maybe he was just stressed from work. His job as a director at a major real estate development firm was demanding. I patiently took his jacket and briefcase. "Go take a shower, honey. I've already drawn a hot bath for you. After that, we'll have dinner. I made your favorite short ribs to celebrate tonight," I said, following him toward the master bedroom. David stopped walking abruptly. He turned to me, his eyes cold and empty. "Forget the shower. We need to talk." "Talk about what, David? You look so serious. Let's talk over dinner, okay?" "The food will get cold," I coaxed. "No, now. Get Jenna," he commanded, his voice frigid. My brow furrowed in confusion. Why call Jenna? What did our housekeeper have to do with our romantic anniversary celebration? Jenna? Why, David? She hasn't been feeling well all day. Let her rest. Get her. In the living room. Now. His voice rose, sharp and hard. The tone made me flinch. He never snapped at me like this without reason. With a mix of confusion and a rapidly beating heart, I walked to the housekeeper's room at the back of the house. I knocked softly on Jenna's door. "Jenna? David wants to see you." "In the living room. Right now." There was no clear answer, but I could hear muffled sobs from inside the room. My heart began to pound in my chest. What was going on? A terrible feeling of dread washed over me. A few moments later, the door creaked open. Jenna came out, her head bowed low. Her eyes were red and severely swollen. She kept her gaze fixed on the floor, nervously wringing the hem of her shirt. I walked ahead, leading the way, with Jenna trailing behind me. In the living room, David was already seated on the long sofa, his expression hard and tense. I sat on the couch opposite him, while Jenna remained standing awkwardly by the coffee table, trembling. The room fell silent. The only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock, which seemed to be racing in time with my heart. "What is it, David? Why is it so tense in here?" I asked, trying to break the suffocating silence. I forced a smile, though the muscles in my face felt stiff. David looked at me sharply. Then his gaze shifted to Jenna. "Sit down, Jenna," he ordered her quietly. Jenna shook her head slightly, tears beginning to stream down her cheeks again. "No, sir, it's okay. I'll just stand here." David sighed impatiently and leaned back against the sofa. "There's something important I have to tell you tonight, and I want you to listen calmly, without interrupting." "Okay, David, what is it?" "You're scaring me," I said honestly. My hands were becoming cold and sweaty. David paused for a moment, looking straight into my eyes. His gaze held no trace of guilt. Instead, it was defiant and condescending. "Jenna's pregnant." Those two words came from his mouth so flatly, without any emotion. But for me, they were like being struck by lightning. I froze, my brain struggling to process the information. I looked at David, then at Jenna, who was now sobbing uncontrollably, covering her face with her hands as if she were the one suffering the most. "Pregnant?" I repeated, my voice hoarse and raspy. I tried to make sense of the words. "With who? Her boyfriend from back home? Why are you so involved in her personal life? We can give her some money for a doctor, or send her home." "I'm the one who got her pregnant," David cut in, his voice sharp and decisive. My world collapsed. The air in the room was suddenly sucked away, and I couldn't breathe. My eyes widened in horror at the man I had been married to for 5 years, the man who had promised to protect me, love me, and be faithful to me for the rest of his life before God. "David, you're joking, right?" My voice trembled uncontrollably. Tears welled in my eyes, ready to spill. I desperately hoped this was some horrible joke for our anniversary. I hoped he would burst out laughing, pull me into his arms, and say it was all a prank. But David didn't laugh. He looked at me with a dead serious, ice-cold expression. "I'm not joking at all. Jenna is pregnant with my child. She's almost 2 months along." My tears broke free. I couldn't hold back the searing pain any longer. A pain so immense it felt like it was tearing my chest apart. How could this have happened in my own home, under the same roof I shared with him every day? "Why, David? How could you do this to me?" I shrieked, my voice raw with hysteria. I stood up and rushed toward him, pounding on his chest with all my strength, but he roughly pushed me away, and I almost fell. "Stop it. Don't be so childish," he yelled, his eyes bulging. I staggered back, looking at him with a disgust and disappointment so profound it was sickening. "Childish? You're calling me childish? You cheated on me with our housekeeper, in our own home. You got her pregnant, David, and you call me childish for being angry that my husband slept with another woman?" David stood up, towering over me. He placed his hands on his hips, looking down at me with contempt. "What else was I supposed to do? You think I wanted this to happen? It was an accident, but what's done is done. The child in Jenna's womb needs a father, and I will not run from my responsibilities." "Responsibilities?" I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound amidst my sobs. "What about your responsibility to me, to our 5-year marriage, to all the sweet promises you made when you proposed? That's why I'm talking to you tonight," he said, his tone flat, as if discussing a business project, not the catastrophic ruin of our marriage. "I've thought this through." I looked at him with a sliver of hope. Maybe he would say he'd support the child from a distance, without involving Jenna directly. Maybe he would say this was a stupid, momentary mistake that he would regret for the rest of his life. "I'm going to marry Jenna as soon as possible," David said with unwavering certainty. My heart stopped. "You're going to do what?" I asked softly, in disbelief. Jenna, who had been crying the whole time, slowly lifted her face. She looked at David with an expression of pure adoration, as if he were a hero who had descended from the heavens to save her. The sight made me sick to my stomach. "I'm going to make her my second wife," David continued, without a hint of hesitation. The absurdity of his words struck me. Polygamy was illegal, a fantasy. He was talking about an arrangement. "You don't have to worry about your position. Your place as my legal wife, as the lady of this house, will never be replaced by anyone. Jenna knows her place. She will be a submissive partner. She'll continue to serve you in this house. All your shopping needs will be met, just like always." I won't reduce your monthly allowance by a single dollar. His words were utterly insane. He was treating me like an object, a decoration that could be bribed into silence with money. You are completely out of your mind, I hissed, my teeth grinding. You've lost it. I'm not crazy. I'm being realistic, he shot back, his voice booming. Use your head. We've been married for 5 years, and you still haven't given me a child. My mother asks me about it every time she calls. My growing company needs an heir. And now, Jenna is carrying my child, my own flesh and blood. I can't just throw my own kid away. So that was the real reason. Because I hadn't given him a child. My heart shattered into a million pieces. We hadn't been blessed with a child yet, but doctors had confirmed that we were both perfectly healthy. We just needed to be patient and wait for the right time. But apparently, his patience had a 5-year limit. And worse, he had vented his impatience on the woman sleeping in the back room of our own house. If you wanted a child so badly, we could have tried IVF, David. We could have adopted. Why did it have to be this dirty, disgusting way? Why did you have to cheat with the maid? I screamed, pointing at Jenna, who immediately bowed her head again, pretending to be scared of my anger. IVF is expensive and there's no guarantee it will work. This is a sure thing, right in front of us. Jenna is pregnant. That's a fact you can't change, he argued fiercely, defending himself. I shook my head violently. My head was spinning. No, I will never, ever share my husband, not until the day I die. Especially not with the maid in my own house. I refuse to share you with this homewrecker. David's face instantly hardened, his skin flushing red with anger, his jaw clenched. He strode towards me, his eyes radiating an arrogance and conceit that he had apparently hidden from me so well all these years. Listen to me very carefully, he said, his voice low but laced with threat. I'm not asking for your permission here. I'm simply informing you of my final decision. You have 2 choices right now. He held up 2 fingers in front of my tear-stained face. First choice, you shut your mouth. You accept Jenna as part of this household. You let her live here and give birth to my child in this house. You will remain the lady of the manor. Enjoy all the luxury I provide. Use my credit cards as you please to buy designer bags and maintain our family's good name in front of your socialite friends, as if nothing has happened. He then gave a cynical, condescending smile that made my stomach churn. Or, the second choice. He slowly lowered his hand. If you refuse to accept my terms, then you can pack your bags and get out of this house tonight. But remember one thing. If you choose to leave, you can't take anything with you. Not the designer clothes in your closet. Not the jewelry I bought you. Not the luxury car you drive around. All of it belongs to me, earned with my sweat. You will walk out that door with only the clothes on your back. I was speechless for a moment. His words were cruel, piercing, and incredibly demeaning. What did he think I was? A parasite living off him. He felt all-powerful because he was the breadwinner, while I was just a simple housewife. He had apparently forgotten that before I married him, I had a promising career at a prestigious firm. He had forgotten that I sacrificed my own dreams to manage our home and support him as a husband. You think I'm not brave enough to leave? I challenged, my voice trembling, but my eyes locked on his, unblinking. He laughed out loud, a sound full of scorn. Go ahead, if you're so brave. What are you going to eat out there? You haven't worked in an office for 5 years. Your personal savings are probably gone, spent on all those bags and shoes. You want to go back to your parents' house? Oh, I forgot. That old house was sold to provide the seed money for my company. You have no one and nothing left in this world. Without me providing for you, you're a nobody. Just a weak woman who is 100% dependent on her husband's money. In that instant, my tears dried up, my sadness evaporated, replaced by a rage that boiled up to the crown of my head. He was completely underestimating me. He had forgotten who he was dealing with. He had forgotten that beneath my gentle, patient, and obedient wife persona, there was a fierce fighter's spirit, inherited directly from my late father. Jenna, who had been standing quietly by the table, lifted her head, looking at me with a mocking, dismissive expression. Behind her fake, crocodile tears, a triumphant smirk was clearly visible on her lips. That woman must have thought she had won, having successfully stolen my husband and secured the full support of this wealthy man. I took a deep breath, trying to quell the storm raging in my chest. My mind suddenly became sharp and tactical. I looked my husband straight in the eyes. The love I had nurtured for him died in that very second. The arrogant man before me was no longer the husband I knew. He was just a selfish, pompous creature who disgusted me. "Fine," I said softly, but firmly. My voice no longer trembled. David's face broke into a wide grin. He thought I was scared and had chosen the first option. He was 100% certain that I had bowed to his threats about money and luxury. "Now that's a smart decision," he praised, arrogantly adjusting his collar. He then turned to Jenna, who was blushing. "You hear that, Jenna? The lady of the house agrees to the new arrangement. Starting tomorrow morning, move all your things to the guest room upstairs. You won't be sleeping in the maid's quarters anymore. You're carrying my precious child now. You need a more decent and comfortable space." Jenna beamed, her face, which had been so gloomy, now radiant with joy. "Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry, ma'am. I promise I'll respect you and continue to help around the house as usual." I looked at them both, my gaze as cold and sharp as a shard of glass. I felt sick watching the cheap, disgusting charade they were playing out in front of me. I wasn't finished speaking. I cut in sharply, shattering their false happiness. My voice broke their smiles instantly. My husband looked at me, his brow furrowed in annoyance. What else is there to argue about? I straightened my posture, looking directly into his face without a shred of fear. I refuse to be part of this arrangement. I refuse to share a husband with a low life like her. And I refuse to live another day under the same roof as a disgusting traitor like you. David's face tensed again, turning red with suppressed rage. "So you're really choosing to leave? You're sure you want to be a homeless bum on the street tomorrow?" he sneered. "I choose to leave," I answered, my voice steady and certain. "And my divorce lawyer will be serving you papers as soon as possible." Without waiting for his reply, I turned and walked quickly towards our bedroom on the second floor. I walked with a straight back, without hesitation. In the living room I left behind, I heard him snort and spit in disgust. "Let her go. She'll probably be crying at the gate by morning, begging for food," he shouted arrogantly, making sure I could hear him. "We'll see how long she can survive out there without a penny from me." I covered my ears. Let him feel victorious tonight. Let him think I would be utterly destroyed without him. The foolish man had no idea that his decision tonight was the beginning of his own total annihilation. He didn't realize that the lioness who had been sleeping peacefully in his luxurious home had just been awakened, ready to pounce and destroy everything. I closed the master bedroom door softly behind me. As soon as the latch clicked shut, all my defenses crumbled. My knees suddenly felt like jelly. I slid down to the cold marble floor, my back pressed against the heavy wooden door. The tears I had fought so hard to hold back in front of them finally burst forth. I covered my mouth with both hands, trying to muffle the heartbreaking sobs so they wouldn't hear me downstairs. Hot tears streamed down my face like a river breaking through a dam. My chest felt incredibly tight, as if a massive stone were crushing my lungs, making it hard to breathe. 5 years. For 5 years, I had served him with all my heart as a devoted wife. I cooked his favorite meals every single day, carefully straightened his tie each morning, waited patiently for him to come home late at night, and nursed him tirelessly when he was sick. I had even willingly sacrificed my own dream of starting a culinary business to focus on supporting his career, which had started from nothing. And what was my reward for all my sacrifices? The filthiest, most disgusting betrayal a husband could commit. Cheating on me with the housekeeper I fed every day, gave my nice clothes to, and treated like family. And the affair happened in my own home, on a bed that might have been the very one where I laid my tired body next to him each night. Just thinking about it made me want to vomit. I rushed to the ensuite bathroom and threw up into the sink. All that came out was bitter stomach acid that burned my throat. The taste in my mouth was as bitter as the reality I was forced to swallow tonight. I looked up at my reflection in the large mirror above the sink. My eyes were red and swollen. My light makeup was smeared, and my hair was a mess. The face that was once always cheerful and loving now looked pale, gaunt, and broken. These are the last tears I will ever shed for that ungrateful man. From this moment on, I swore to myself, not another single tear would fall for him. A lowlife like him didn't deserve a single one of my precious tears. I turned on the faucet and splashed cold water on my face, letting the sharp chill bring me back to my senses. I walked out of the bathroom toward my large walk-in closet. Time was ticking, and I needed to move quickly and strategically. Tonight, I had to get away from this house, which now felt like hell on earth. Through a small crack in the window, I could faintly hear noises from downstairs. Laughter. David's laughter and Jenna's sickening giggle. They were casually watching TV in the living room, the volume turned up loud. They were probably enjoying the short-rib dinner I had painstakingly prepared with love. The image of them sitting together, eating my food while celebrating their dirty victory, made my blood boil. A thick, dark rage swept away every last bit of my sorrow. They thought they had won. They thought that by kicking me out without a cent, I would come crawling back, starving and begging at their feet tomorrow morning. They were so wrong. My husband was severely underestimating my intelligence. I opened the closet door and pulled down a medium-sized suitcase from the top shelf. My hands moved quickly and efficiently. There was no hesitation, no sadness left in my heart. As per the stupid challenge my husband had thrown at me, I wouldn't take any of the expensive designer clothes he had bought me. I only took a few simple cotton outfits, 2 pairs of my favorite old jeans, a couple of simple shirts from my college days that were still neatly stored, enough underwear, and my toiletries. I threw everything into the suitcase without bothering to fold it neatly. As long as it fit and I could close it, I didn't care. All the superficial luxury that had surrounded me for the past 5 years now felt as disgusting as trash. Next, I moved to my vanity table, laden with valuables. I deliberately ignored the expensive imported perfumes from Paris, the jewelry box filled with diamond necklaces and rings, and the row of designer watches worth tens of thousands of dollars. I only opened a small drawer underneath and took out my personal documents. A folder with my college diploma, my passport, my driver's license, and a personal bank book I hadn't used in years. The balance was probably only a few $1,000s, left over from my allowance money back in the day. It wasn't much, but it would be enough to cover my living expenses, find a cheap place to stay, and eat for a few days while I planned my counterattack. I sat for a moment on the edge of the silk-sheeted bed. My eyes slowly scanned the luxurious room, the king-size imported bed, the crystal chandelier, the plush shag carpet, and the expensive abstract painting on the wall. All this blinding luxury, he claimed, was bought with his money. It was true that, on paper, all the receipts for the items in this house were in his name, purchased from his company's income. But wait, my mind drifted back several years. It was a few months before we got married. My father, a very successful local real estate developer, had died suddenly from a heart attack. He left me, his only child, a significant portfolio of valuable assets. There were several prime commercial lots downtown, a strip mall with fully leased storefronts, and a large, beautiful, historic family home. At the time, I was emotionally fragile and grieving, and my future husband swooped in like a hero, offering a shoulder to cry on. David, who was then just my fiancé trying to get his small real estate agency off the ground, persuaded me with the sweetest words. "Honey, instead of letting your father's assets sit there doing nothing, let's use them as seed money for my business. I promise you, I'll manage them professionally and make them grow. This is for our future, for our children." His sweet talk, combined with my blind trust and love-drunk foolishness, made me agree without a second thought. Oblivious to the cunning ways of the business world, I foolishly signed a full power of attorney, giving him the absolute right to manage, lease, sell, or even use those assets, all of which were still legally in my name as collateral for bank loans. David had said at the time, "This will make negotiating deals and finding clients much easier. Let the company's strong name be at the forefront, while all the assets legally remain in your name." The valuable documents, the property deeds, vehicle titles, and all other legal papers were kept by him, and I never asked about them again. Over the past 5 years, I never once questioned him about those inherited assets. I was too busy enjoying my role as a good housewife, taking care of his every need. I let him handle everything. His real estate business skyrocketed. His company grew rapidly, winning massive government and private sector contracts. I had always assumed it was all due to his business acumen. He bought us this mansion, the fleet of European luxury cars in the garage, and spoiled me with a ridiculously large monthly allowance. I lived comfortably, lulled into a false sense of security in a gilded cage, believing he was a hard-working, brilliant, and responsible husband. But now, after the harsh slap of his betrayal, my eyes were wide open to my own stupidity. David's success wasn't just because of his own genius. It was built on the foundation of my father's legacy. All the luxury he flaunted, his magnificent corporate building, it was all built on my father's hard work, on assets that were, by law, entirely mine, not his. A cold, calculating, and cynical smile slowly formed on my lips. My husband could arrogantly claim that everything in this house was his. He could kick me out like a stray dog without even a decent change of clothes. But the arrogant man had forgotten one crucial thing, the very thing that would become his own grave, the original legal documents of my inheritance. David was a meticulous man when it came to paperwork. He always kept those valuable documents in a large, secret, steel safe, cleverly hidden behind a bookshelf in his private home office on this floor. That expensive safe used a sophisticated digital combination lock. Of course, he never told me the code. He always sweetly explained that it contained high-level corporate secrets, and he didn't want to burden my mind with it. "You just relax and be beautiful at home. Honey, let me handle the stressful business of making money." That was always his excuse. But for all his cleverness, my husband had one fatal flaw. He was terrible at remembering numbers. One late night, about 3 years ago, he came home drunk after celebrating a huge contract win. He was rambling on, slurring his words, boasting about how he had crushed his competitors. And amidst his incoherent babbling, he kept repeating a sequence of numbers with a proud tone. 692185. It's the perfect combination. "No thief could ever break through my fortress," he had yelled, laughing like a madman. I just sighed and helped him to bed, paying no attention to the numbers. I thought he was just spouting random digits in his drunken stupor. But the next morning, while I was cleaning his office because the maid was off, my eyes accidentally fell upon a small piece of paper in the trash can. On it, in his handwriting, was the exact same sequence of numbers: 692185. Ever since that accidental discovery, those 6 digits had been unintentionally etched into my brain. I never had any intention of trying to open his secret safe. I respected his privacy as the head of the company. But tonight, the situation had turned into a nightmare. My husband had declared war, and I was not a woman who would go into battle unarmed. I glanced at the digital clock on the nightstand. 11 p.m. The sound of the TV from downstairs had stopped. It was quiet. They had likely gone to bed. The thought of David and that gold-digging housekeeper sleeping together in the guest room made my stomach turn again. But I pushed the disgusting feeling away. I had to focus. I turned off the main light in my room, leaving it dimly lit by a small lamp in the corner. I crept out of my room, moving as silently as a cat. The cold marble floor was hard under my bare feet. I had purposely taken off my slippers to make no sound. The long hallway on the second floor was dark and eerie. I followed the wall slowly toward David's office at the far end of the hall, well away from the guest room where he and Jenna were. I turned the doorknob with extreme care, and the door opened without a creak. It wasn't locked. The familiar smell of old paper, black coffee, and his expensive, masculine cologne filled my nostrils. This room was his sanctuary, where he often spent his nights working late, or so I thought. I didn't care anymore. I took out my phone and turned on the flashlight. The bright beam landed on his massive, neatly organized executive desk. I walked past it to the polished wood bookshelf that covered half the wall. It was filled with thick books on business and management, along with several crystal trophies his company had won. I knew exactly where the safe was. My eyes focused on the middle section of the bookshelf, on a blank wooden panel designed to blend in seamlessly with the wall behind it. I pressed on the left side of the panel with firm pressure. Click. The secret panel swung open, revealing the heavy steel door of a safe embedded in the wall. The digital keypad was blinking with a faint light. My heart hammered against my ribs like a war drum. My hand trembled as I reached for the keypad. Was the code still the same, or had he changed it? If I entered the wrong code 3 times, the alarm would shriek through the house. The risk was enormous. If I got caught, he would have every reason to accuse me of theft and have me thrown in jail. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and said a silent prayer, asking for strength from my late parents. I needed it. Opening my eyes with new determination, my finger moved steadily, pressing the numbers one by one. 6, 2, R, E, Ba, Wu, beep. The small LCD screen above the keypad flashed green with the word open. There was a heavy mechanical clunk as the lock disengaged. I let out a massive sigh of relief. My chest, which had been so tight, suddenly felt light. My idiot, arrogant husband. He was so convinced I was just a weak, clueless woman that he never bothered to change the code to the safe that held the very lifeblood of his company. I pulled the heavy steel door open. My phone's light illuminated the interior, which was divided into 3 shelves. On the top shelf were neat stacks of $100 bills and several bundles of fresh US dollars. It looked like a fortune, hundreds of thousands in cash, but I didn't touch a single bill. Taking any of it would give him a clear legal path to report me for theft. I wasn't that stupid. Let that money pay for his mistress's expenses. My focus shifted to the second shelf. It was lined with thick red and blue document folders. I pulled them all out and quickly examined them under the flashlight. The first red folder contained the original deed for a 5-acre plot of land on the outskirts of the city's industrial park. My name was clearly printed as the owner. Attached to it was a thick stack of loan agreements from a major national bank. The documents clearly showed that my husband had used my inherited land as primary collateral to secure millions of dollars in working capital for his company. And guess who had supposedly signed the collateral approval forms? There was my signature, forged with remarkable precision. I snorted, holding back a cynical laugh. Illegal document forgery. Perfect. This will be my first weapon. The second red folder contained the deeds to the commercial storefronts in the strip mall. Again, all legally in my name. Clipped to these was a 10-year lease agreement with a national retail chain. All the rental income, hundreds of thousands of dollars annually, was being directly deposited into my husband's corporate account, not a single penny into my personal one. Then I opened the blue folder. This was the most shocking and valuable discovery. It contained the articles of incorporation for his company. It turned out he had registered his growing business as an LLC. And on this authentic, notarized document, it was stated in black and white that I, as the provider of the initial seed capital, legally held a 70% majority stake in the company. My husband, as the managing director, only owned a meager 30%. I stared at the document, frozen in disbelief. For 5 years, he had acted like a king, parading around as the sole owner of his business empire. Tonight, he had dared to throw me out with nothing, feeling superior because he was the one making all the money. In reality, legally and financially, I was the majority shareholder. The company he was so proud of was, in essence, mine. Without hesitation, I folded and stuffed all the red and blue folders into a small backpack I had brought from my room. I cleared out the entire second shelf. My eyes then glanced at the bottom shelf. Lying there was a thick, black leather-bound ledger and a plain yellow folder. Curiosity piqued. I picked up the black ledger and opened it to a random page. My eyes narrowed. It was a detailed record of his company's illegal double-entry bookkeeping. It meticulously documented all the unofficial cash flows, the bribe payments to city officials for zoning permits, and clear evidence of massive tax evasion over the last 3 years. How incredibly stupid. He had diligently documented his own white-collar crimes in his own neat handwriting. A satisfied smile spread across my face. I scooped up the incriminating black book and the yellow folder, adding them to my backpack. My collection of time bombs, ready to detonate and obliterate the foundations of his arrogant life, was now complete. After making sure I had taken every single legally significant document, I closed the heavy safe door, spun the handle until it clicked shut, and pushed the secret bookshelf panel back into place. It looked untouched. He wouldn't suspect a thing until he had a reason to open it himself. I walked out of his office, feeling 1,000 pounds lighter. My face was now a cold, emotionless mask. I went back to my room, grabbed my suitcase, and slung the backpack, containing the lifeblood of his company, over my shoulders. I walked down the stairs of this mansion for the last time. The house was eerily silent. There was no sadness left, no foolish regret. All that remained was a burning, steel-hard resolve for revenge. I unlocked the front door, stepped out onto the porch, and pulled it shut behind me until it locked. The cool night air hit my face, but I didn't feel cold. I walked across the stone pathway of the front yard, opened the small iron gate, and stepped out onto the sidewalk. I stopped for a moment and looked back at the imposing 2-story house that had been my prison for 5 years. A luxurious house built with the money from my father's hard work, now being enjoyed by a filthy trader and a greedy, gold-digging maid. "Enjoy your victory party tonight," I whispered to the wind. "Sleep soundly in that comfortable bed. Celebrate your cheap little win, because starting tomorrow at sunrise, the rest of your lives will become a living hell. And I'll be watching your destruction from a front row seat, laughing." I turned my back completely. The wheels of my suitcase scraped against the asphalt, the sound cutting through the quiet night. I walked away with absolute certainty, leaving my bitter, disgusting past behind me, ready to face a new dawn as the sole master of my own destiny and of their impending ruin. After walking for about a mile, I reached a major intersection, still bright with streetlights. I pulled my phone out of my old jeans and opened a ride-sharing app. Luckily, even though it was after midnight, a car was nearby. I booked it and waited in silence. 15 minutes later, a dark sedan pulled up. The driver, a tired-looking middle-aged man, got out to help me with my suitcase without asking any questions. "To the address in the app? Downtown?" he asked once I was in the back seat. I just nodded. "Yes, sir. Please find the cheapest, safest motel you know of around there. I just need a place to rest tonight." The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror, probably wondering about a woman with a suitcase in the middle of the night, but he was polite enough not to pry. The ride downtown took about 45 minutes. I stared out the window, watching the streetlights blur past, my mind racing, piecing together my plan. I clutched the backpack on my lap, my one and only life raft in this storm. The car finally stopped in front of a simple 2-story motel. The paint was peeling, and the neon sign flickered weakly. It was a world away from the luxury I had just left, but right now, it was my heaven of freedom. I paid the driver with a $50 bill from my wallet and hurried to the front desk. A sleepy young man gave me a key to a room on the 2nd floor after I paid for 3 nights in cash. The room was tiny, just big enough for a double bed, a cheap particle board wardrobe, and an old tube TV. The air was stale, smelling of old mothballs, but the sheets looked clean enough. I locked the door, then let my exhausted body fall onto the firm mattress. I took a long, deep breath, trying to release the tension in my shoulders. I wasted no time on self-pity. I sat up, pulled my backpack onto the bed, and unzipped it. I spread out all the precious documents I had taken from David's safe on the faded white bedspread. Under the dim, yellowish light of the room, I began to examine them one by one. My heart pounded as I carefully reread the bank's collateral agreement tied to my father's land deed. I squinted at the signature over the notary stamp. It looked eerily like mine, but I knew for a fact I had never signed that paper. David was a cunning snake. He had either hired a professional forger or practiced it himself to secure millions of dollars from the bank. This was a serious federal crime. Next, I turned to the thick, black leather ledger. I flipped through the pages of the double-entry bookkeeping. David had meticulously recorded every illegal transaction. There was a list of city officials who had received bribes to approve his housing projects. There were records of grossly inflated material costs, and most damning of all, a summary of the fraudulent tax returns he filed, reporting only a fraction of his actual income. He thought he was so powerful, so untouchable, that he could keep all the evidence of his crimes in his own house. He thought I was just an obedient, stupid wife who knew nothing about business. You picked the wrong person to cross, David, I muttered, my voice shaking with rage. You stole my family's legacy to fund your ambition, then threw me away for a gold digger. I will make sure you pay for everything, down to the last cent. I glanced at my phone. It was 3 a.m. My eyes burned with fatigue, but my mind refused to rest. I gathered the documents, organized them neatly, and put them back in the backpack. I hugged it tightly to my chest and finally closed my eyes, letting exhaustion pull me into a short, restless sleep. The morning sun slanting through the thin curtains woke me a few hours later. I got up, took a refreshing cold shower, and put on a simple cotton shirt and my jeans. I looked in the bathroom mirror. The dark circles under my eyes were prominent, but my gaze was no longer that of a sad victim. It was the cold, determined look of a woman ready for war. At exactly 8 a.m., I took out my phone and found a number I hadn't called in years. Mr. Arthur Vance, the family lawyer who had always handled my late father's legal and business affairs. Mr. Vance was a good friend of my father, a man of great integrity who had known me since I was a child. I held the phone to my ear, listening to the dial tone, hoping he was already at his office. Vance and Associates, how may I help you? A deep, familiar voice answered. It was Mr. Vance himself. Hello, Mr. Vance. Good morning. It's Amelia, daughter of the late Mr. Davenport, I said, my voice as calm as I could manage, though my heart was racing. There was a brief pause on the other end before Mr. Vance's voice returned, filled with surprise and warmth. Amelia, my goodness, child. It's been too long. How are you? I've heard from old business contacts that your husband's company is dominating the real estate market in this city. You must be very busy as the lady of the house. I smiled bitterly. The lady of the house who had just been kicked out with nothing but old clothes. I'm not well, Mr. Vance. Not well at all. I desperately need your legal help. As soon as possible. Today, Mr. Vance's tone immediately shifted, becoming serious and alert. He was a seasoned lawyer with sharp instincts. What's the matter, Amelia? Does this concern your husband? Tell me everything. Slowly. I took a deep breath and told him everything, leaving nothing out. I told him about David's betrayal, about him getting the housekeeper pregnant. I told him about the ultimatum to accept his arrangement or leave with nothing. My voice wavered slightly, but I refused to cry. I also told him how David had arrogantly claimed 100% ownership of the company when the seed money was entirely from my father's inheritance. That damn bastard. Mr. Vance swore loudly over the phone. I heard what sounded like a fist hitting a desk. That ungrateful snake. He came to me begging for my blessing when your father passed, promising to take care of you for life. Turns out he was just a wolf in sheep's clothing after your father's assets. That's not even the worst of it, Mr. Vance, I continued, my voice low and firm. Last night, before I left, I managed to open the secret safe in his office. I took all the original property deeds in my name, the company's articles of incorporation showing me as the 70% majority shareholder, and most importantly, proof of my forged signature on the bank collateral loan, along with his ledger detailing 3 years of bribery and tax evasion. A long silence followed. I could picture Mr. Vance in his large leather chair, stunned, processing the explosive information I had just delivered. Amelia, Mr. Vance's voice trembled, not with anger this time, but with awe. You truly are your father's daughter. You are incredibly brave. That fool had no idea he'd woken a sleeping tiger. Where are you now? I'll send a driver to pick you up. We need to move fast before he realizes his safe is empty. I'm at a small motel near the city square, sir. I don't want to go to your office. I'm worried he might have people watching. Could we meet at that little coffee shop across the street from your building instead? I suggested tactically. Good idea. I'll meet you there in half an hour. Keep those documents safe. Today, we begin the legal and systematic demolition of that arrogant man, Mr. Vance concluded, his voice full of conviction. I ended the call with a faint smile. My husband thought he had thrown me to the wolves, but he didn't realize I had just ripped out the very heart of his empire. The coffee shop smelled of roasted beans, a comforting and calming aroma. I chose a quiet corner booth, away from the window. I placed my black backpack carefully on the seat beside me. A few minutes later, the door opened and Mr. Vance walked in. He still looked distinguished, though his hair was now completely white. He wore a tailored gray suit, his face etched with the seriousness of a seasoned legal practitioner. As soon as he saw me, he came to my table. He looked at my face with a sympathetic expression, like a father seeing his hurt child. "You look exhausted, kid. But there's a powerful fire in your eyes. I'm proud of you for not letting that man trample all over you." "Thank you, Mr. Vance. I don't have time to feel sorry for myself. I just want what's rightfully mine back, and to make sure he's punished for what he's done," I replied bluntly. I opened my backpack and laid the stack of valuable documents on the table in front of him. Mr. Vance put on his reading glasses and began to examine them one by one. His calm expression slowly hardened. His jaw clenched as he read the bank collateral agreement, scrutinizing the forged signature. When he opened the black ledger, he shook his head in disbelief. "This is more than just a domestic dispute, Amelia. This is large-scale corporate crime," Mr. Vance said gravely. "Your husband has dug his own grave. The bank fraud alone is enough to send him to federal prison for years. Not to mention the bribery and tax evasion detailed in this book. If this gets into the hands of the IRS and the FBI, his entire company's assets will be seized. So what's our first move, sir?" I asked impatiently. "First, we don't go straight to the police. If we act rashly, he might have enough cash stashed away to flee or hire a crooked lawyer to destroy other evidence at his office," Mr. Vance explained, organizing the documents. "Our first move this morning is to paralyze him. I'm going straight to the bank that holds the loan against your property. I will present them with proof of your majority ownership and a sworn affidavit that your signature was forged. We are going to get a court order to freeze all of his corporate accounts today, based on an ownership dispute and clear evidence of fraud." I nodded. The plan was brilliant and deadly. "Do whatever you think is best. You have my full power of attorney." After I signed the necessary papers on the spot, Mr. Vance hurried off to the bank. I remained in the coffee shop, ordering a cup of hot tea to soothe my empty stomach. I just sat there, staring at my phone, waiting for the time bomb to explode. At exactly 10 a.m., my phone lit up. It was a call from a number I knew well. Chloe. She was David's personal secretary. Chloe was a smart, honest young woman who had always been respectful to me. I knew she disliked David's arrogance but stayed for the salary to support her family. I answered the call. "Hello, Chloe?" "Mrs. Davenport! Oh, thank God you answered." Chloe's voice was panicked and shaking. I could hear a commotion in the background. "Just a moment. I need to go somewhere private." I heard a door close. "Mrs. Davenport, the office is in absolute chaos. It's like a sinking ship." "Calm down, Chloe. What's happening?" I asked, feigning ignorance. "David." Mr. Davenport came in this morning looking like a mess. His eyes were bloodshot, and he was furious. He stormed into his office and slammed the door. And then, about half an hour ago, the bank called my desk, demanding to speak with him urgently. When I transferred the call, he started screaming. You could hear it all the way down the hall. He threw a glass ashtray against the wall. It shattered everywhere. "The bank? What did they want?" I prompted, barely containing my glee. Mr. Vance was fast. "Our CFO just told me. All the main company accounts have been frozen by the bank, effective immediately. We can't access a single penny. We can't even pay the construction crews today. Rumors are spreading like wildfire. The investors who were in a meeting just now are all demanding answers." Mr. Davenport ran out of his office, pale as a ghost, trying to call someone on his cell, but it looked like no one was answering. I chuckled silently. His financial ruin was beginning even faster than I had imagined. "Oh, and there's one more thing that has the whole office buzzing," Chloe added, her voice dropping to a gossip-like whisper. "This morning, Jenna, your housekeeper, showed up here. She was wearing way too much makeup, a ridiculously tight designer dress, and carrying an empty shopping bag. She marched into the lobby, demanding to see Mr. Davenport. She was acting like she owned the place." I snorted in disgust. That gold digger couldn't wait to flaunt her new status and demand her allowance. And what did my husband do when she arrived? He was already stressed out with the investors. When Jenna barged in asking for cash to go to the mall, he just snapped. He slapped her, right there in front of everyone. It was so loud. He screamed at her, called her a piece of trash, and told her to go home on the bus and never set foot in his office again. She had a total meltdown in the lobby, until security had to drag her out. It's a complete disaster here, Mrs. Davenport. What on earth is happening? Thank you for the information, Chloe. You're a good person. If I were you, I'd start packing up your personal belongings and look for a new job. That company isn't going to last much longer, I said calmly, and hung up before she could ask more questions. I had just put my phone down when it lit up again. This time, the name on... I let it ring, torturing him with panic, before finally answering with a slow, deliberate motion. Hello, I said casually, taking a sip of my tea. Amelia! Where the hell are you, you crazy bitch? His scream was deafening, his voice hoarse with panic and raw desperation. I held the phone away from my ear. Wow, calm down, David. It's still early. Getting angry is bad for your blood pressure. How were the short ribs last night? Did you two enjoy them? I asked, my tone dripping with sweet, sharp sarcasm. Don't mess with me, Amelia. Give me back the documents from my safe, right now. Do you realize what you've done? You've destroyed me. The bank froze everything because of your damn lawyer, he bellowed, his breathing ragged. I laughed, a cold sound that echoed in the quiet coffee shop. Destroyed you, David? You're mistaken. I didn't destroy you. You destroyed yourself last night. You threw me out with nothing, so I simply took what was legally mine. Those property deeds are mine. The majority of that company's stock is mine. You stole from your own home. I'm calling the police. I'll have you arrested for theft of corporate documents, he threatened, resorting to the same cheap intimidation tactics. But this time, I didn't flinch. Go ahead, David. Call the police. In fact, I'd be delighted to wait for you at the station. Oh, and when you go, don't forget to bring that thick, black ledger of yours. You remember that book, don't you? The one with your neat little notes about bribing city officials and evading millions in taxes for 3 years? We can hand that sweet little book over to the FBI and the IRS at the same time. Let's see who rots in prison longer, me or you. A dead, chilling silence fell on the other end of the line. I could vividly picture his arrogant face turning sheet white, cold sweat beading on his forehead, his knees trembling. He finally realized I hadn't just taken his assets. I had taken his life and had my hand wrapped tightly around his throat. Amelia, please. His voice changed completely. The arrogant yelling was gone, replaced by the pathetic, trembling whimper of a coward who had just lost everything. Please don't do this to me. I'm sorry. Please, come home. We can talk about this. I got rid of Jenna. I won't marry her. I made a mistake, Amelia. Please, save my company. I'm begging you. It's too late, David, I replied, my voice as cold as ice. Your precious mansion is about to be seized by the bank. Your luxury cars will be repossessed. You and your mistress can enjoy the karma you deserve on the streets. Have a nice life as a broke, homeless loser. Without waiting to hear another word of his pathetic pleading, I pressed the red button and blocked his number forever. I looked out the window of the coffee shop at the dark clouds gathering in the sky. A hurricane had just hit my husband's life, and I was standing strong in the eye of the storm, the victor. Today was the day of execution. My lawyer had worked with astonishing speed. Armed with the original documents and proof of forgery, the bank, feeling utterly deceived, took swift and uncompromising action. They weren't about to risk a multi-million-dollar loss from a credit default wrapped in a criminal fraud scandal. This morning, a team from the bank, accompanied by uniformed police officers, arrived to carry out a forced asset seizure. From the cool, air-conditioned interior of a town car, I watched the chaos unfold on the manicured lawn of our once luxurious home. 3 large tow trucks were parked across the street of the elite suburban neighborhood, blocking the road. Uniformed agents were busy hooking heavy iron chains to the wheels of David's cars. The European sports sedan he was so proud of was being forcibly dragged onto the flatbed of a tow truck. The screech of metal and the roar of the engines shattered the morning peace, drawing curious neighbors out of their homes to watch the free spectacle. A moment later, the front door of the house flew open. David stumbled out, looking frantic and disheveled. His appearance was pathetic. He was wearing a wrinkled t-shirt, his hair was a mess, and his face was pale from lack of sleep. He ran towards the bank agent who was holding a clipboard. "Wait! Stop! What the hell is this? You have no right to take my cars," David yelled, his voice hoarse with desperation. He tried to block the tow truck, but two burly police officers stepped forward and restrained him. "I'm sorry, sir. We are acting on an official order from our headquarters," the bank agent replied, his tone cold and clinical. "All assets registered under your company's name, including these vehicles and this house, have been frozen and are being seized as collateral against a defaulted loan and evidence of document fraud." "What fraud? I've always made my payments on time." "You've got the wrong person. I'm a priority client at your bank," David continued to scream hysterically, the veins on his neck bulging. He looked like a man who had lost his mind. "Your wife visited our office this morning with her legal counsel, sir. She provided irrefutable proof that the signature on the collateral agreement for the land deed you used was a forgery. That is a federal crime, and the bank has the right to seize all assets funded by that loan. You can take this matter to court," the agent explained firmly, leaving no room for argument. David froze, his mouth hanging open. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. His legs began to tremble violently. He finally understood that my threat on the phone was not an empty bluff. I had severed the arteries of his entire life in less than 12 hours. Just then, Jenna emerged from the front door. She was struggling to drag 2 large suitcases and several overstuffed designer shopping bags. Her appearance was so ridiculous it made me want to laugh out loud. She had on a thick layer of garish makeup, was squeezed into one of my silk dresses she had obviously stolen, and wore cheap, flashy costume jewelry. She was still trying to play the part of a wealthy new mistress. "David, what's all this noise? Why are they taking our cars? And why are these people trying to kick us out of the house?" she shrieked, her voice shrill and piercing. She waddled over to David, looking annoyed that her morning of leisure had been interrupted. David turned to look at her, his eyes empty and filled with disgust. "Shut up. This is all your fault. If you hadn't gotten pregnant and begged me to marry you, my wife would never have opened that safe and destroyed everything," he roared, unleashing all his frustration on the only person left to blame. Jenna stared at him, shocked. She dropped the suitcases. "What? How is this my fault? You're the one who told me you were a big shot with tons of money. You promised to make me a lady and buy me a mansion. So why is this house being seized? Where's my monthly shopping money, David?" she screamed back, just as hysterically, demanding the phantom luxuries he had promised her. The neighbors watched the shameful argument on the porch with rapt attention, whispering and pointing. Some were even recording the spectacle on their phones. The reputation and prestige David had worked so hard to build had crumbled to dust before a public audience. The lead bank agent stepped forward with a large, rolled-up vinyl banner. With the help of his colleagues, they unfurled it and tied it to the main iron gate of the house. In large, white capital letters, 3 words stood out against the bright red background. "Property seized by bank. Your time to vacate the premises is up," one of the police officers said sternly. "Please take your packed personal belongings and leave the property immediately. We need to seal the premises." David collapsed to his knees on the hard pavement of the driveway. He grabbed his hair with both hands and let out a guttural, animalistic sob. His wealth, his power, his social status, everything that had made him so arrogant, had vanished overnight. His sandcastle empire had been washed away by the tide. At that moment, his phone rang. With trembling hands, he pulled it from his pocket. From inside my car, I couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but I had a very good idea who it was. "Hello, Mom? What is it?" David's voice trembled. Suddenly, he pulled the phone away from his ear as the shrill, hysterical screams of an older woman could be heard even from where I was sitting. It was my mother-in-law, the woman who had always looked down on me for not providing a grandchild and who constantly boasted about her successful son. "What have you done? Why are people from the bank here in my town trying to foreclose on my house? I've lived here for decades. Why did you use the deed as collateral for your debts without telling me? Do you want your mother to die homeless on the street?" David went completely limp. He bowed his head until his forehead touched the grimy pavement, his tears watering the dry ground. It seemed his treachery didn't stop with me. He had also secretly used the deed to his parents' home as cross-collateral for his fraudulent business dealings. And now, with his primary assets frozen because of my report, the bank was moving to seize every last piece of security it could, including his own childhood home. His destruction was total. There was no escape. He had lost his company, his wealth, his home, his family's respect, and the one wife who had ever truly supported him. Jenna, overhearing the phone call, exploded with rage. "So, you're really broke? You don't have a single penny left? Where am I supposed to live now? I'm pregnant with your child, you goddamn liar!" she screamed, kicking one of her suitcases. The sweet, innocent act she had maintained as a housekeeper was gone, replaced by her true, greedy, and materialistic nature. "Shut up, you trash! If you can't handle it, go find some other man to take care of that bastard child," David screamed back, his words as vile as hers. The cheap drama unfolding in broad daylight was more than enough for me. A cold smile played on my lips. The burning desire for revenge in my chest began to cool, replaced by a deep, satisfying sense of peace. Watching them tear each other apart was the best entertainment money could buy. "Let's go, sir," I said calmly to my driver. "The main event is over. We can return to the hotel." The car's engine purred to life, and we drove away from the chaotic scene, gliding past the crowd of gawking neighbors and authorities. The first phase of my plan was complete. Now, I would let them enjoy their new life of poverty and suffering on the dusty streets. 2 weeks had passed since that momentous day. In that time, my life had moved forward at lightning speed. With the help of my expert legal team, I had used my majority shareholder documents to legally seize full control of the company. It wasn't easy. I had to clean up the administrative mess, fire several corrupt executives who were David's cronies, and restructure the entire management. My father's properties were back in my name, generating a steady stream of legitimate income into my personal account. I had moved from the dingy motel to a luxury high-rise apartment with top-notch security. But amidst rebuilding my family's business empire, I hadn't forgotten about the two traitors. I hired a private investigator to track their whereabouts. I just wanted to be sure they were truly suffering and not plotting any new trouble. The investigator's report, complete with recent photos, had just arrived on my desk. The contents made me shake my head in disbelief at how quickly the wheel of fortune could turn. That afternoon, after a crucial meeting with new investors, I decided to pay them a visit. I drove myself in the brand new luxury SUV I had just purchased with my own money. I was dressed in an elegant power suit, expensive heels, and designer sunglasses. My entire appearance radiated success, power, and unshakable independence. I parked on a gravel lot a short distance from their location, ensuring my expensive car wouldn't attract too much attention. I stepped out and carefully navigated the puddles in the narrow, dirty street. My steps led me into a dark alleyway, so cramped that sunlight struggled to break through the lines of laundry hanging overhead. At the end of this dead-end alley was where they now lived. A tiny, one-room rental unit, probably the size of the master bathroom in our old house. The walls were rough, unpainted cinder blocks, and the roof sagged as if ready to collapse. There was no porch, no garage, just a rotting wooden door, slightly ajar, revealing a dark and stuffy interior. I had barely been standing there for a moment when a familiar, shrill scream shattered the alley's silence. "I can't take this, living like a bum in this dump. It's hot, the fan is broken, the roof leaks, and this mattress is killing my back. You're the man, so go out and get a job. Do something, anything. Stop lying around all day." It was Jenna's voice, raw and filled with frustration. "You think finding a job is that easy?" came the reply, just as loud. David's voice was heavy with exhaustion and despair. "My company is gone. My name is blacklisted everywhere. All my business contacts have blocked my number. I have a college degree. I was a director. You expect me to work as a day laborer? What about my pride?" "Pride? Shove your pride," Jenna shrieked back. I heard the crash of something plastic being thrown against a wall. "If you can't feed me and give me a decent place to live, then we're done." I regret ever getting pregnant with the child of a useless, broke loser like you. I should just get rid of this damn thing instead of suffering every day in this garbage heap. You touch that baby, and I'll break your neck, David threatened, his voice a low, terrifying growl. You are just a maid who cleaned toilets. Stop acting like you deserve to be a queen. You're the one who seduced me until I got you pregnant. Now that I'm broke, you want to run off with my child? You're nothing but a cheap, materialistic tramp. My first wife was 1,000 times better, prettier, and richer than a piece of trash like you. His words made me smirk behind my sunglasses. The irony was delicious. He had arrogantly thrown away a diamond to pick up a dirty rock, and now that the rock had cut him, he was crying for the diamond. Instant karma was a beautiful thing. A physical fight seemed to break out inside. I heard things falling, a rough shove, and Jenna's cry of pain. A moment later, the wooden door was flung open, and Jenna was pushed out, stumbling and falling into the dirt. She looked pathetic. Her hair was a tangled mess. Her face was gaunt and makeup-free, and her cheap house dress was stained. Her stomach was just beginning to show a small bump. David followed her out, breathing heavily. He looked even worse. He was gaunt, his cheeks hollow. An unkempt beard covered his pale, grimy face, and his eyes were sunken and bloodshot. He wore a torn t-shirt and dirty shorts. The arrogant, well-groomed man who once wore designer suits and expensive cologne was gone, replaced by the ghost of a homeless man. "Get out of here! You ungrateful bitch! Don't you ever come back!" he screamed, pointing at Jenna, who was sobbing on the ground. She wiped her tears away roughly and looked up at him with pure hatred. "I'm leaving. I'm sick of looking at your broke face. And don't you ever expect to see this baby." It was at that moment that I chose to step out of the shadows. The sharp, rhythmic click of my heels on the pavement cut through the tension. I stood tall, my arms crossed, and looked down at them from behind my sunglasses with a mixture of disgust and amusement. My sudden, pristine presence in that filthy alley was like a white swan landing in a pigsty. Hearing the footsteps, David slowly turned his head. His sunken eyes widened in shock, as if he were seeing a ghost. His jaw dropped. Amelia, my wife," he whispered, his voice barely audible. He took an involuntary step back, intimidated by my powerful aura. Jenna, still on the ground, looked up as well. Her eyes went wide, taking in my elegant, wealthy appearance. Envy, hatred, and shame washed over her face. She quickly bowed her head, hiding her own pathetic state. "Good afternoon," I said, my voice calm, cool, and cutting. "Sorry to interrupt your romantic domestic dispute. I was just in the neighborhood scouting investment opportunities in a slum." Hearing my voice, David's legs gave out completely. He fell to his knees in the dirt right in front of me. He started to crawl forward, trying to touch the hem of my clean, expensive shoes, but I quickly stepped back, avoiding his filthy hands. "Forgive me, Amelia. Please, forgive me," he suddenly wailed, a loud, pathetic sob. Tears streamed down his dirty cheeks. He pressed his forehead to the ground again and again, debasing himself at my feet. I was wrong. I was a blind, stupid fool. "Please, take me back. I'll be anything you want, your driver, your servant, just let me have a decent life again. Please, save me from this hell. This woman, she tortures me every single day," he cried, pointing a trembling finger at Jenna, blaming her for everything. I slowly took off my sunglasses, looking straight into his desperate, terrified eyes. There wasn't a shred of pity left in my heart for him. "Take you back?" I repeated, letting out a small, condescending laugh. "David, have you lost your mind? You're the one who threw me out that night. You told me to leave so you could live happily ever after with your beloved housekeeper." I glanced at Jenna, who was still frozen on the ground. "Enjoy the choice you made so arrogantly, David. Weren't you the one who said I was just a weak woman living off your money? Well, look at me now. Your company is 100% mine. Your fortune is gone. And you're just a piece of garbage rotting in a gutter." I leaned down slightly, bringing my face close to his ear. "Don't you ever say my name or look for me again for the rest of your miserable life. As far as you're concerned, I'm dead." just like your career and your life. Enjoy rotting in this new hell you've made for yourselves." Without another word, I straightened up, put on my sunglasses, turned my back, and walked away, leaving them both weeping in the dust. The sound of my heels echoed triumphantly down the alley as I walked toward my bright, shining future. The weight of the past 5 years was finally lifted, and justice had been served in the most satisfying way imaginable. This morning, I sat in my large leather executive chair on the 15th floor of my own office building. The room was spacious, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the bustling city below. On my desk, there were no more debt notices or fraudulent project reports, only proposals for new business expansions and profit statements with figures that soared higher each month. A soft knock on the door, and then Chloe, my former secretary, whom I had since promoted to my personal assistant and trusted operations manager, walked in with a bright smile. "Good morning, Mrs. Davenport. Here's the performance report for our 5th restaurant branch in the Southern District. Their sales this month have doubled our initial projections," she reported, placing an elegant folder on my desk. I smiled back at her. "Excellent work, Chloe. Give all the employees at that branch an additional 10% bonus this month. They've earned it." "Right away, ma'am," Chloe replied enthusiastically. She paused for a moment, looking at me with admiration. "You look different today, ma'am. That navy blue suit is stunning on you. So powerful, yet so elegant." I chuckled. I had changed my appearance significantly. My hair was now cut in a chic, professional bob. I took care of myself, wearing makeup that was subtle but empowering. "Thank you, Chloe. It's for the big meeting with the international investors this afternoon." "Oh, and how is the affordable housing project in the East End progressing? Are all the permits cleared?" 100% cleared, ma'am. Our legal team moved quickly, especially since we didn't have to grease any palms this time, like in the old management days. Chloe corrected herself awkwardly, avoiding David's name. "It's okay, Chloe. You can say his name. He's not a taboo subject. He's just a pebble from my past that I've kicked into a landfill," I said casually, without a trace of emotion. The name no longer held any pain, only a fleeting sense of disgust. "You're amazing, ma'am," Chloe said sincerely. "I remember that day you called me when the office was in chaos. I was so scared I'd be unemployed. But you called me back, gave me a raise, and even paid for me to take management courses. I owe you so much." "You earned it, Chloe. You're honest and hardworking. In business, integrity is the most valuable asset," I replied warmly, something my ex-husband never had. After she left, I swiveled my chair to face the window again, letting the morning sun warm my face. I thought about how far I had come, the transformation from a meek, submissive wife to a feared and respected CEO. The wound of betrayal had once shattered me, but from those broken pieces, I had rebuilt myself into someone stronger, sharper, and unbreakable. I was no longer thinking about marriage or finding a new partner. My focus was on growing my empire, improving the lives of my employees, and ensuring that no one would ever trample on my dignity again. The Queen's reign had just begun. The dark past with David and Jenna was buried deep beneath the glittering success of my present. I was the winner, and I would make sure this victory lasted a lifetime. Nothing and no one could stop me now. I smiled at my reflection in the glass, ready to conquer a new day.